Good morning, class. So yesterday we started reading When Marianne Sang, and today we're going to continue right where we left off. Marianne still wanted to advance her singing with master teachers. With the help of friends, she was granted an audition with the fierce yet famous Giuseppe Boghetti. When she arrived at his studio, Mr. Boghetti announced that he didn't have time or room for new students. Too afraid even to look at him, Marianne took a deep breath. Slowly, with great emotion, she sang, "Deep river, my home is over Jordan. Deep river, Lord, I want to cross over into campground. Don't you want to go to that gospel feast, that promised land where all is peace? Oh, deep river, Lord, I want to cross over into campground." Marianne finally lifted her eyes. "I will make room for you right away," Mr. Boghetti said firmly, "and I will need only 2 years with you. After that, you will be able to go anywhere and sing for anybody." Again, Marianne's devoted church community raised the money for her lessons. Marianne worked hard with Mr. Boghetti, and sometimes for practice she sang scenes from Italian operas with him. Her recitals now included German songs too, but other languages troubled her. She didn't want simply to sing beautiful words like Dunkel wie Dunkel in Wald on in Feld. She wanted to know that the words meant dark, how dark in the woods and the fields. Other Negro singers had gone overseas to develop their voices and learn foreign languages. Why not her? After all, Europe was different. There she would be able to sing to mixed audiences and travel without the restrictions put on her people in America. Marianne needed to grow, and Mother agreed. A bundle of trepidation and excitement, Marianne boarded the Le de France in October 1927. She had never been so far from her family. She knew her sisters would take good care of her mother, but still she already felt twinges of homesickness. Sometimes I feel like a motherless child. Sometimes I feel like a motherless child. Sometimes I feel like a motherless child. A long ways from home, a long ways from home. Sometimes I feel like I'm almost gone. Sometimes I feel like I'm almost gone. Sometimes I feel like I'm almost gone. A long ways from home, a long ways from home. Marianne studied and was eventually invited to perform in concert halls in Norway, Sweden, Finland, and Denmark. The enthusiasm for her singing was so overwhelming that one newspaper in Sweden called it Marianne fever. Audiences applauded in London, cheered in Paris, and pounded on the stage for encores in Russia. In Austria, the world-famous conductor Arturo Toscanini announced that what he had heard one was privileged to hear only once in 100 years. Marianne felt as if she had finally achieved some success. She even asked Mother if there was anything she wanted that would make her happy, because now Marianne could afford to buy it for her. Mother said that all she wanted was for God to hold Marianne in the highest of his hands. It seemed like she was already there. Mr. Boghetti had been right. She could go anywhere and sing for anyone. Until she came home to the United States. In 1939, Howard University in Washington, D.C. booked a concert with Marian Anderson and began looking for an auditorium big enough to hold the audience she attracted. They decided that the 4,000-seat Constitution Hall would be perfect, but the manager of the hall said it wasn't available and no other dates were offered because of their white performance-only policy. Marianne's agent, Saul Hurok, wrote to the hall manager, pointing out that Marian Anderson was one of the greatest living singers of our time, but it did no good. Enraged fans wrote letters to the newspaper. In protest, Eleanor Roosevelt, the First Lady of the United States, resigned from the organization that sponsored Constitution Hall. Howard University then tried to reserve a large high school auditorium from an all-white school. Again, they were denied. Now teachers were angry and marched in support of Marian in front of the Board of Education. Washington, D.C. was boiling point, about to spill over. Wasn't there some place in her own country's capital where Marian Anderson's voice could be heard? Committees formed and held meetings. Finally, the President Roosevelt's approval, the Department of the Interior of the United States government invited Marian to sing on the steps of the Lincoln Memorial on Easter Sunday. Her country was offering her a momentous invitation. But she had concerns. Would people protest? Was it dangerous? Would anyone come? Examining her heart, Marian realized that although she was a singer first and foremost, she also had become a symbol to her people, and she wanted to make it easier for those who would follow her. She said yes. Standing in the shadow of the statue of Lincoln, waiting to be called out, she read the engraved words, "This nation, under God, shall have a new birth of freedom." Marian looked out on a river of 75,000 people. Her heart beat wildly. Would she be able to utter a note? She took a deep breath and felt the power of her audience's goodwill surge toward her. Marian's sisters were there, and mother too. Marian stood straight and tall. Then she closed her eyes and sang, "My country 'tis of thee, sweet land of liberty. Let freedom ring." A roaring cheer followed every song. At the end of the program, the people pleaded for more. When she began her thought-provoking encore, "Oh, nobody knows the trouble I see. Nobody knows my sorrow." Silence settled on the multitudes. Wow, look at that. For almost 16 years after the Lincoln Memorial performance, Marian sang for kings and queens, presidents and prime ministers, famous composers and conductors. She received medals, awards, and honorary degrees for her magnificent voice. But there was still one place Marian had not sung. When she was finally invited, a dream came true. Marian wondered how people would react. No Negro singer had ever done such a thing. She would be the first, but she didn't need to worry. After she signed the contract, someone said, "Welcome home." On opening night, excitement charged the air. As Marian waited in the wings, the orchestra began. Her stomach fluttered. She walked onto the grand stage, trembling. She straightened her costume and waited for the pounding music she knew to be her cue. Tonight was her debut with the Metropolitan Opera. At long last, she had reached the sun and the moon. The curtains parted. And Marian sang. The end. I hope you enjoyed this book as much as I did. Oh my goodness, so good.